Webinar, I'm excited to announce, will be provided by the BHIT team. That's the Behavioral Health Information Technology program. And it's going to focus on understanding the billing claim cycle. But before we get started, just some housekeeping here. One is this webinar is being recorded, and both the recording and the slides will be made available. After the webinar, you will receive a notice and where these recordings and slides can be obtained. But again, just to underscore, we are recording this presentation, and the slides will be available as well. Also, throughout the presentation, we invite folks to chat in the questions. Again, if you're not familiar with our process, there's a chat option on WebEx here, and please, throughout the presentation, chat in the questions. We will be compiling all those questions, and depending on how much time is available at the end of this presentation, we will be going through our Q&A portion of this presentation as well. So again, thank you for joining, and without further ado, I would like to turn this over to Hector Pena and his team at BHIT. Thank you.
Thank you, Boris. Thank you very much, NTAC, for this support on this important activity for us. This presentation is going to be really delivered by Mitch Katz and myself. And we wanted to make sure that this information is going to go as simple as possible, but on the other hand, as complete as possible. What is the audience? What are we intending? Well, really for those organizations, many of you perhaps, that are still using paper for documentation or billing. Some of your staff, some of your organizations do not have or have very limited experience sending billing or creating billing or claims, and definitely that require a basic understanding of the claim processes.
Yeah, so this is a very ground level billing webinar, very basic information. So if you've already done claim entry or charge posting, payment posting, then you're more advanced than the information we're going to give out. If you've done RCM.
What's an RCM?
Well, exactly. If you know what RCM is, then this is not the webinar for you. This will be a review at best. So the real purpose of this is you will be choosing a vendor for your case documentation and billing. They will come on site or by webinar give you training. So we want to give you a foundation of information so when they come in and they start saying things like fee schedule and claim forms, EOB.
EOBs?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of acronyms, and we're going to get into all of that. And that's really the basic information that we want to relate to you.
Okay, with that, let's start talking about what is going to be the content. As Mitch was saying, we're going to be reviewing some basic concepts, foundation, and then we're going to be reviewing the billing claim cycle that is composed of three major elements. Number one, how the claims are generated and transmitted to the payer or the clearinghouse. Do you know what a clearinghouse is? I mean, we need to clearinghouse, right?
Yeah. We have to clear up what a clearinghouse is.
Yeah, I think with that, definitely. Then we are going to be reviewing the claim processing, and finally, how to close the claim, what we call claims adjudication. So first thing first, Mitch, let's start with the basic concept.
Okay, so very basic concepts begin with the electronic billing system. Many years ago, when you performed a service and you wanted to get reimbursed by the insurance companies, you would have to send a paper claim form, but now we can actually send them electronically. and those are called an EBS, the electronic billing systems. So when the electronic billing systems were created, someone came along and says, well, why don't we record the case documentation electronically as well? So EMRs were created. Those are the electronic medical records. That's where case documentation is recorded.
But that doesn't have any billing, though.
No, an EMR does not have any billing capabilities.
Oh, okay. Well,
so,
which one has both?
Well, someone said, well, why don't I create something that has both the EBS and the EMR?
Good.
That is an electronic health record.
And what is the advantage of having that one?
Well, you want an integrated system if possible, because you do not want to have double entry, entering demographic information into both the electronic billing system and the case documentation system, which is the electronic medical records.
Okay, well, sounds good. Let's continue, Mitch.
So where does the claim information get sent to? It gets sent to the insurance carriers, and the insurance carriers have different divisions. So you will hear these terms, and again, we're just trying to give you information so that when you hear these terms, you'll be a little familiar with it. So there's the HMO, which is a health maintenance organization. Now those are networks of members that have to go to providers that are also in that network. So you must stay within your network for an HMO.
Okay, so I cannot go except to that place.
You can only go to the providers that they say you have to choose from these providers.
Good. What about PPO?
Well, you have a little more leeway with the PPO. PPO, you can choose the providers in their network, or you could choose to go to an out-of-network provider, someone that's not affiliated with that carrier.
Okay, so I have more freedom about that.
More freedom, however, there may be more out-of-pocket expenses if you choose the out-of-network provider.
So, okay, good. So HMO usually is less expensive then.
You're usually responsible just for a co-payment.
All right.
Nothing else with the HMO.
Let's keep going with some other options about, insurance.
Well, there's the POS, which is the point of services, similar to the PPO. Except the user usually required maybe a co-payment or some form of co-insurance with that.
What is the difference with the before, the PPO?
Like I said, not much difference, except for possible member responsibility.
All right. Well, this is still a basic concept, right?
Correct.
Indemnity.
Indemnity plans, there is no network. They're just carriers that will pay a certain percentage of fees sent in by the providers.
Good. Now, one question that I might have, ACBS service fall into any of those?
So far, we're just giving you basic information so you have an understanding of insurance carriers. Something like no fault will not fall into HCBS services. No fault is medical services that's due to an automobile accident.
Good, I understand. Yeah, somebody hit my car last night. Oh my gosh. Okay.
I hope you're okay.
No, I am okay. Yeah.
Work is comp. That's if you get hurt at work on the job. Again, HCBS services does not fall under this category.
Right.
So what category do you fall under?
Oh, well, Medicaid, right?
That is correct. Medicaid does HCBS services. Now, there are two forms of Medicaid.
Okay.
Regular Medicaid, or it's also known as straight Medicaid, which is direct submission to the Medicaid program, and it gets processed within the Medicaid grouping.
Okay.
However, they sometimes outsource.
I see. And when it's outsourced, how it's called?
They're called the MCOs.
Oh, that sounds familiar for ACBS, right?
Yes, the Managed Care Organization. So this very last one, Medicaid Managed Care Organization. This is what you will hear the most for HCBS services. These are the commercial and private carriers which have been outsourced by Medicaid to handle HCBS services.
So let me get this straight, which is not Medicaid straight, but it's straight, right?
Correct.
Okay, good. MCOs are the one that ACBS providers are going to be using in the state of New York?
That is correct.
Only MCO for ACBS
That is correct.
recipients. Okay, good. Good to know. Thank you, Mitch. Okay, Should we continue?
Yes.
All right.
Let's go through some more basic concepts. So you'll hear things such as a fee schedule. So what is a fee schedule? That's the approved conditions by CMS, which regulates the healthcare services and payments. So it's pretty much saying for service A, we'll reimburse you $10. For service B, we'll reimburse you $15. And they'll give a description of what those services are as well.
That fee schedule is updated how often, Mitch?
Usually once a year.
Okay.
Usually around October.
Okay.
If there are any changes, that'll be released.
All right. And software vendors are going to be updating that as well?
Software vendors get this information, and the software vendors that are qualified will be updating this information.
Wonderful. Well, wonderful news. I didn't know, Mitch.
Yeah.
Let's continue with this. Okay. CPT.
So those are the current procedural terminology. Those are the service codes that you will be reporting to the insurance carriers, the MCOs.
I hope you're going to give me an example after this, because I am, not following you very much.
There will be examples.
Oh, good. Thank you. I knew that you would thought about it.
There'll be an example for an ICD-10, which is a diagnosis code. HCBS Services is not a diagnostic-driven service, but in order for the claims to get to the MCOs and pass through their processing, there needs to be a diagnosis code. So since there is no diagnosis code for the service, we created the R69 code for all HCBS services. So for every service performed for HCBS, you can enter R69 as a diagnosis code, and it will never get rejected for that code.
So, Mitch, come again. So you're saying R69 is for any HCBS service in terms of diagnostic code?
That is correct.
And has to be right there, correct?
And has to be entered, has to be submitted.
Yeah. Now, all the HCBS qualified vendor software already have that code in the system, correct?
That is correct.
Good. All right. Good to know. So, so far, so easy. Let's see if continuing that way, this webinar, right? Rate code.
So the rate code tells you the exact dollar amount for that service. So there can be services within the fee schedule that may be on-site or off-site, and there'll be different reimbursement amounts for that. So each one of those would have a separate rate code.
All right. Modifier.
So the modifier indicates, based on the CPT, additional information, such as a modifier indicating on-site, a modifier indicating off-site, which would then choose the proper rate code.
I see. Now, could it be useful just to show how a fee schedule looks?
It could be useful to see a fee schedule.
Right now?
Okay.
Sure. Why not?
So this is a sample of the fee schedules that is released. Sometimes there's additional information, but we pulled the information that really pertains to us. So column A, you see what the rate code is, and B is a description of what that rate code. Column D is the procedure code, the CPT, or the service code, with a description of that in column E. Column F is the modifiers. Those modifiers, again, is additional information that will help the MCO process the claim. In column G is the unit measures. How long is a unit? So if I do an hour service at 15 minutes, I would need to use 4 units. Column H will let you know the maximum amount of units. So if I'm looking at the first line of 4, if I did 2 hours at 15 minutes, I'm only going to get paid for 4 units, not all 8 units.
Come again? I mean, that means I'm going to be working 2 hours, I'm going to be paid only 1?
That could be a possibility.
Because I overstep, I exceed the number of units that I am allowed to bill, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, good. Oh, my goodness.
Column I is the fee. How much are you going to get reimbursed per unit?
So, let's see one very small example. For example, let's see that we are going to do some psychosocial rehab individual on site. The modifier is going to be different, right?
Correct.
And perhaps the rate is going to be different as well.
Correct.
Even though they are going to be using the same maximum number of units.
That is correct.
Wow, Mitch, I'm beginning to learn something about it. Okay, let's continue with it. Okay.
Okay. So some more basic concepts. You'll be hearing about a HCFA 1500, which is what we used to call the claim form that we sent to the MCO. The new name for it is a CMS 1500. This is a paper form that was sent to the MCO for processing for reimbursement.
Okay.
These were used for professional services, clinics. The UB04, that is for institution and organization billing. So some samples of what they look like.
Okay, let's show some samples then.
So this is the UB04. This is the form that HCBS providers would be using if they submit it on paper.
Correct.
And it captures all the demographic information up on top, and in the center of the screen you could see the billing information, codes, the dates of service, the charges, which are X's here. This information will get sent to the MCO. MCO would then process it for payment.
Good. Okay, let's continue then.
Okay. So, professional services, that uses the HCFA 1500 or the CMS. Electronically, you will hear an 837P.
Aspiña.
That's Pina.
Okay.
That's Pina.
But now, what professional services is? Who is a professional service right here?
Well, these are medical doctors.
Okay. Got it.
Your PCP.
Yeah.
The specialists.
Okay.
What HCBS service, that's considered institutional and organizational, which would have been the UB04 if we were on paper. However, a term that you will be hearing is the 837I.
I see. So all HCBS is going to be using 837I, and that's the electronic form.
That's correct. That's the information when it's entered into the EHR, when you transmit, it gets transmitted through an 837I reporting.
Good. Okay, let's move on. So let's talk about claims generation and transmission to the payer.
Talking about my generation.
All right.
Absolutely.
Good. Okay.
So, claims generation and the transmission. What's the process? Well, first thing is services are delivered to a member. So once you perform your services to the member, you will go into your electronic system and record it. So the service will be documented. After you document the services will then be approved to be sent on a claim.
Okay, there is a maximum rule right here, Mitch, which is service that is not documented is never going to be paid.
Correct.
And now there is another one. Service that is not documented correctly or complete is not going to be paid as well.
Complete documentation.
Exactly.
So I've done billing for 20 years. In that 20 years, I've told all providers, if you document a service, I will guarantee you will get paid for that service. Very important. If it's not documented, you didn't do it.
Okay. No documentation, no money.
Correct.
Good. Let's go. What is the next step?
So the next step is to batch the claims.
Right.
So once the service is approved for a claim, the claim is then batched.
Batch means what?
Batch means to gather all the outstanding individual line item claims.
All right.
And put it into one area.
Okay.
Which will become the claim batch file.
Okay.
The claim batch file then gets transmitted, and you will receive a claim batch report indicating all of the members that were included in that batch.
Where is that batch file? Where is it located?
So that batch file is in the EHR.
Oh, wonderful. And how is transmitted?
It is transmitted through, and it's different with the different vendors, but there will be a transmission area within the EHR to get them out the door.
Excellent. So, all right. What is the next step?
Well, the next step is some claim scrubbing. Now that it's all batched together and ready to go out the door, there will be an internal claim scrubbing from each vendor. The claim scrubbing, what that does, it takes a look to make sure that all the necessary fields are filled in.
All right.
Then the claims get transmitted to the payer, to the MCOs.
All right.
And you will receive a transmission report to indicate which of those claims have been transmitted.
All right. Okay, Mitch, it looks to me that we have seen, let's keep talking about some things about claims.
Okay, well, as we mentioned, the claim batch, that's a process that allows to consolidate multiple claims into a claim batch, which will be ready to be sent to the transmission. It goes into a claim batch file.
Yeah.
It's a text file which consolidates multiple claims and transmits it to the payer. And then the claim batch report will indicate which members are in that batch file.
Good. Scrubbing and transmission.
So the internal process in the software will review the claims in order to reduce the errors before the transmission to the payer.
Oh, so this is done in the EHR software that the ACBS provider is having?
That is correct.
Oh, okay. That is important.
Yes, there are internal scrubbings within each vendor's software.
Okay. Well, later on you let me know what we have done in order to help these providers in this regard, okay?
Sure.
Good. Transmission report.
So that's going to list all the claims that were sent out and would also indicate which ones were not sent out, which ones were rejected.
And still, this is within the software of the organization,
all
right?
Within the software.
Oh, okay.
So in theory, the total number of the claim batch report should equal the transmission report. If it doesn't equal, then something through claim scrubbing got rejected.
Okay, good. Now, Mitch, how is transmitted the claims to the payer?
Well, there's two ways to get claim information to the MCOs.
Okay.
If the MCO accepts a direct claim submission, you could send the information to the payer directly.
Good.
But most of the time, they do not take it directly, so you'll have to go through a clearinghouse.
Oh, that sounds sophisticated, right?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
We're talking, yeah, clearinghouse. Look at a clear house. That's an intermediate organization which will receive the transmitted claim files and then forward it to the proper payer. So you could have members with 7 different MCOs all going in one claim batch file to the clearinghouse. During their review process, they will send it to the proper payer.
I see. All right. So the clearinghouse is like a U.S. Postal Service, right?
Yeah. Well, some carriers only want claims coming directly from a clearinghouse. They don't want to come directly from the organizations.
Okay.
But one thing that the clearinghouse does is additional claim scrubbing.
Oh, tell me about it. What is this?
They do it through CCI editing, which is the correct coding initiative. So where the software scrubbing may stop something if a field is missing, if you forgot to put in the policy number. But CCI editing will actually stop a claim if they're not compatible information. There are certain rules about what codes can go out. So CCI editing will give an internal scrubbing which focuses on the data existing on the claim,
okay,
whether it's missing or not.
Okay, so in other words, this CCI is basically just to avoid rejections.
Correct.
Huh, but I thought that we did something on the with the software vendor in that regard.
We did, but they may not have the additional level of the CCI edit.
Oh, so what we did then was the warning alerts.
Yes, so we created some warning and alerts that have somewhat eliminated the need for the CCI editing.
Somewhat, yes. Okay.
So when the vendors created their functionalities for HCBS services, we wanted to make sure that the cleanest claims go out the door.
Excellent. Okay, well, So, tell me more about clearinghouse.
So, clearinghouses, even though you're sometimes forced to go through them, they're not free.
Oh, I thought it was a freebie.
No, nothing in life is free.
Oh my goodness, not even a lunch?
Well, sometimes.
Okay.
Well, so there will be a fee, and sometimes they're like, pennies. But pennies add up. So it's important to speak with the vendor, discuss the clearinghouse with them, and figure out what possible additional fees there may be. The clearinghouse reports usually are generated within 24 hours of the transmission. Sometimes you get instantaneous results. Sometimes it takes up to 24 hours to get some form of acknowledgement from the MCOs. The reports usually include what's accepted and what's rejected, and if it's rejected, it always indicates the error. Maybe not in detail, but it'll say incorrect diagnosis. If you have multiple diagnoses, it won't tell you which one, but in HCBS land, R69 is the only diagnosis, so you won't get a rejection of that sort. You may get a rejection based on a modifier missing or not valid.
Okay, good. Well, so far, the claim has been created, has been sent to the payer, and it is on the hand of the payer.
Yes.
So let's start reviewing that.
Well, the MCO has the information at this point, and how do they receive it? They received it with that 837I. So now that they've received it, what are they going to do with it? More scrubbing.
More scrubbing.
Scrubbing bubbles.
So this is the scrubbing webinar.
It's very clean. Very clean. Even things clean.
Okay. Tell me about that additional scrubbing. What do they do with that?
Well, that scrubbing will indicate if information is valid. For instance, policy number. If it's not the correct policy number for that member, it will get rejected at the MCO level. It will not get rejected on the software level or even in the clearinghouse level because they're just looking to make sure that there is a policy number in the field. They don't know if it's a correct one or not. They just need to know that some form of information is in there. So when the scrubbing at the MCO level happens, they know that that policy doesn't match the member, so that's another form of additional scrubbing. Once they go through the scrubbing and everything is clean, because we like clean things.
Clean.
Then payment is determined.
Right.
And then that information, how it was determined, will be sent through a claim remit file.
Paying determination maybe is deny or is pay, correct?
That is correct. Just because they determine payment doesn't mean they're determining that actual money is going to be paid with it.
No. From the example that you said about the policy, that reminds me of something very important that has to do with documentation. When the person is going to receive the service, it's crucial just to check the information, whether there has been some changes or not.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about it.
Well, if you're dealing with existing members, it's very important to ask them, has anything changed?
Exactly. It doesn't have to do with billing, but it's going to affect claims, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So?
So usually there's the new patient information sheet that's given out, and sometimes some organization will have an existing patient information sheet.
Okay.
And they say if nothing's changed, just write same.
All right. Thank you, Mitch. Let's continue then. So.
So we were saying that the MCO receives the 837I, so that's transmitted by the software or the clearinghouse and uploaded into the carrier system.
It's automatic, right?
Automatic.
Good. Okay.
And we were saying the additional scrubbing will stop things such as a converted policy number.
Good. We spoke about it.
Right. And then the processing of the valid claims, they take the claim information, determine if it's payable or not. If it's payable, they determine the amount. If it's not payable, they'll provide an explanation as to why it's not payable.
All right. And then the report of the results, correct?
Correct. So it'll generate the report of the results. Usually the processing takes 15 to 20 days on average from the time of the transmission. Some carriers can do it in as little as 7 days. Some take up to 30 days.
Why such a long time? I mean, I need my money. I need money.
Well, they all have their own internal processes.
Yeah.
Now, I know there may be some MCOs listening, but the reality is, as a biller, you're in a fight because the MCOs are in business not to pay claims; they're in business to reject the claims. So, as a biller, it's our duty to make sure that we have clean, well-documented information submitted to prevent any type of rejections.
All right. Okay. Now, the response from the payer, how it is a letter?
Well, they used to send it on paper, and they were called explanation of benefits, an EOB.
Yes.
And now, as it comes electronically, they're called the claim remit files.
I see. Now, would you like, should we show some EOBs, perhaps?
Yeah, let's take a look at some EOBs.
And could you please explain a little bit about how to read that famous EOB?
Well, the thing about the EOB is they're not standardized.
Oh.
So every MCO has a different format of how their EOB is. For instance, the one we're looking at on screen, number one up top, it just gives a little description of what we're looking at, indicating that this is not a bill. Number two is the service. Number three is the data service. Number four is how much the organization is billing. Number six, there may be a discount based on being a participating provider. So they'll indicate the amount paid, and if there's a secondary insurance for HCBS services,
doesn't apply.
Here's the total discount amount. I want you to notice the area that says your responsibility, number 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There may be a copay, depending if you go to, if it was an HMO or not, or deductible, if it was a PPO or coinsurance, if it's POS. And number 12 says the amount not covered. So this is all important information. I don't know how much HCBS members will really fall into this area, except for number 13, your responsibility, because members can never be charged by an organization unless the MCO indicates member responsibility.
All right. Now, each MCO has its own forms and so on. So maybe the order is not the same, but the concepts are going to apply.
Absolutely. So somewhere on the EOB with the different carriers, everything that we just mentioned, maybe it doesn't go across. Maybe it goes up and down. But we have another one I think we could take a look at.
All right. Well, let's take a look at another one. With co-insurance.
So here's another one. So you can see it's already slightly different, but it will also include the name of the member, and it'll show the procedure or the modifier, the billed amount, what was allowed, and again, patient responsibility, deductible, coinsurance. And look, on this particular EOB, there is a coinsurance, which is the member's responsibility.
Correct.
Then they'll show how much was paid to the provider.
All right. And
let's look at one more.
Oh, sure. Why not? With deductible.
Right. So this one's very similar to the first one. But look at your responsibility in that area. There's a column for deductible. So this particular plan, there was a deductible, which is the responsibility of the member.
Correct.
So the information is always there. And it does explain with denial reason codes, and we'll get to that in a minute, as to how things are processed. All the way to the right of the screen, it says claim notes. The notes for this particular process is DIS. Well, what does DIS mean? You never have to memorize them. It will always be listed somewhere on the OB. The bottom left says DIS. This charge was reduced based on a discount agreement with the provider, which means that they used a in-network provider and there are discounts that the member will not be responsible for.
Good, Mitch. Well, let's continue with the presentation. How to read if the EOB is paid.
Okay. So again, these are the things that you're going to be looking for on the EOB. The member identification number, what was charged, what's the approved amount, how much was paid, is there co-insurance applied, is there patient responsibility, copay. These are all the things that we saw on the EOBs that we just flashed.
Now, for HCBS, what applies?
Well, the bottom three will not apply.
Okay.
You're looking really for the member information, what was charged, how much was approved, how much was paid. Trying to keep it simple.
Okay. Let's keep it simple and continue with the next.
Right. And the reason why we're mentioning all these other fields is because the EOBs won't change. The EOBs are the EOBs, whether it's for HCBS services or any other service. So there will be columns for the coinsurance and the copays. It should always be 0 of HCBS services, but it's good to know what they mean.
So HCBS recipients are also going to receive an EOB from the MCO?
That is correct.
Oh, good. All right, good to know. Continue. Oops, my mistake. What happens if the claim is rejected, Mitch?
Well, if the claim is rejected, we have to find out, what's going on. In addition to the previous slides that we saw, there are additional fields. One of the most important additional field is the denial reason code. That was kind of that DIS that I indicated before. But what are the denial reason codes? These are codes which explain why a claim is not being paid. For example, denial reason code number 18 means that the claim is a duplicate, which they're saying they've already processed the claim before. Why are you sending it to us again? This is a very common rejection by the MCOs. Now, reason code for straight Medicaid and Medicare are standardized. However, for the MCOs, there are not standardized denial reason codes.
It is my understanding that we have a sample of the standardized Medicare,
Yes.
Okay, let's show that to the audience as well. Just a second. He's here.
So these are the denial reason codes.
Ooh.
So if something is denied and there's a denial reason code 2, you know that it went to their coinsurance. Or if you go down to number 18, duplicate, as I was mentioning before. So denial reason code 18 says this is a duplicate claim already processed.
Now, how the HCBS provider is going to know the denial reason code for the MCO that they're working with?
Well, it is on the EOB itself. So when we saw the
EOB
example, and we saw DIS, that's explaining why the full payment wasn't made.
Okay.
And in that situation, it indicates that there was a network reduction.
Right. Good. But the DRC is always dependent upon the different MCO, right?
Correct.
I mean, so one MCO might label in one way, whereas the other one is going to label in a different way.
Correct. So where we have denial reason code 18 meaning duplicate claim, a different MCO may have DU.
Exactly. So some letters, some numbers, or
Correct.
A combination of both.
Exactly.
Got it. All right.
But it will be clearly explained somewhere on the EOB itself.
Okay.
It's not a secret.
Why is so important the denial code that we're explaining right now?
Because that'll indicate why it's not getting paid, so then you could say, well, you agree or you disagree with that decision.
Can we disagree on that?
You can absolutely disagree.
And what happens if we disagree with what the MCO is paying?
Well, then you'll have to do an appeal.
Oh, let's talk about the appeal.
Let's talk about the appeal.
Let's talk about the appeal.
All right.
Okay, let's start.
So, if a claim is rejected, you can send an appeal indicating that you don't agree with the rejection and give information as to why you can justify why it should be paid.
Okay.
Deadline for appeals, it differs by each carrier. The general rule of thumb is from the date of the remit or the EOB, generally within 30 days you have to file an appeal.
No, that's our recommendation, correct?
Our recommendation, you need to find out from the individual MCOs what their time frames are.
Why are we recommending 30 days after the date of rejection?
Because that's, again, usually the customary time frame to send an appeal.
Okay. And also memory fails, right? I mean, some other work and then you start forgetting and...
Well, once you get a rejection, you should make the correction right away and get it out the door.
As soon as possible.
Whether it's a reprocessing or it's an appeal.
Good. Okay. And how is the appeal? What is the method to create an appeal?
All right, well, you're going to write a letter, and add some attachments. That letter is going to indicate that, you saw this member on this date for this particular service, and you performed all these things, and you maybe give a copy of the progress note, just something that will indicate that these services were performed and justified for reimbursement.
How do you send that?
Well, it's usually sent via regular mail.
Snail mail? And regular mail?
Snail mail, yes.
Okay.
Because the insurance carriers don't want it any quicker, although you could probably find maybe a secure fax. That may be a possibility. You'll work that out with the MCO.
Okay. What about email?
No.
Oh, why?
Well, there are HIPAA regulations that will prevent that from happening.
You're right. We saw that webinar a week ago.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay, good. So, let's continue. And how the claim is closed in the process. Okay,
so insurance carrier, the MCO processes the claim, and they get that information back to you. And if it's a clean claim and it's sent with payment, you'll get a remit file. That remit file will get uploaded into the software. The softwares have an area called auto posting, where with one click of the button, if you have one member with a payment, it will automatically get posted to their electronic chart. If you have 10 members, automatically. If you have 50 members, automatically. Within seconds, this will get automatically entered into their electronic chart.
So what you're saying is with the EHR, with one click, I'm going to be updated each separate electronic chart of the file?
That is correct.
And now I'm going to be saying, well, whether it was paid or not?
That is correct.
Is that miracle happen?
Well, when I first started doing payment posting, it could take you 8 hours, what now takes you less than 8 minutes.
Wow. So, well, sometimes, you know, automation works. Let's continue, Mitch.
Yes. So what should the balance be after the payment is posted? Well, the balance should equal 0, and that's when the claim gets closed. If there's any balance, even if it's a penny, it remains open.
Oh, my goodness.
And that will sometimes happen. Sometimes you'll get shorted a penny. And then that account will remain open.
What do you do then?
Well, you leave it open, or you get it off the AR, the accounts receivable, with a write-off. You write off the penny.
Oh.
And it's uncollectible. It's an organizational decision to reduce the charges. But again, case-by-case basis, you're not going to start billing members a penny. Plus, if the EOB says you can't bill the member, well, then you can't bill the member. The agency can charge the patient only what the carrier has indicated in the column of patient responsibility.
That's the one that you showed before.
That is correct.
All right. So 1 penny is still pending, so we have to close it.
Correct.
All right.
So you would do a write-off.
Okay, and what happened? How do I follow up with my claims? How do I know they've been paid? You know, how can I reconcile and see my money?
Well, at the end of each day, it's important to run a report, which is referred to as a balance report, to make sure that all the charges entered into the system, adjustments and payments, they all balance out. We suggest you match your payment total with your deposit total, and we mean deposit total is bank deposit. And as I mentioned, AR report, accounts receivable report, this lists the status of the balances for all the pending payments. Usually it's sorted by the MCOs.
Is this report also from the EHR software?
This report is in all EHR softwares.
Okay.
So you could run it based on the patient's name, alphabetically. You could run the report based on the insurance carrier. So however you want to somehow do some follow-up, you can sort this report based on what works best for you.
My goodness, that's good. Do we have another type of report?
So there is one that I like to use a little bit better than the AR report. It's called the H-Trial Balance Report. It's very much like the AR report. One of the differences, it gives you aging buckets.
Oh.
So it lets me know how long a particular claim has been waiting for payment. If it's under 30 days, 30 to 60 days, that's all within the normal range. But once something gets to 60 days, that is twice as long as it should have taken to process, and now I'm calling up that MCO to say, what's the status of that claim?
Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, because you need to...
You have to call up the MCOs for status of the claim.
Yeah.
It's very important. Work in billing, we had someone that 8 hours a day, what's the status of the claim? Calls the insurance carrier, status of the claim, what's the status of the claim? That's all they did. Because if you don't call for the status of the claim, you can get red flagged. Say, no, they don't pay attention to their processing, we could reject them. But if you're an organization that is on top of it, the MCOs know these things.
So what you're saying somehow is, you know, ACBS providers have to empower themselves and, you know, be treated and act as a real customer with the MCOs.
Correct.
All right. Good. Good message, mate. Okay, I think this is everything that I thought that it was going to be more complicated.
Well, again, we wanted to keep things at the ground level. We can get into more detail and additional information maybe at another webinar in the future.
Good.
We know that good people at MPAC have billing webinars.
Yeah.
That we would recommend that you follow those.
Well, that sounds good. Well, I guess we want to thank you to MPAC for this, and this is the BHIT team that is working with ACBOs in the whole state of New York, okay? Right here we have our colleagues from NICE. They are responsible for the rest of the state. And here we have, our colleagues right here in the city on the contractual side. Our excellent friend Eric Weisskopf is OMH. We are in the room, by the way. We have the technical team assisting this presentation. And in the programmatic, we have Doug, Yumi in the city, and Lisa Light-Rotman also as well. We want to thank you, for this. And
we probably have about 5 minutes. We hope maybe for a few more, but we have about 5 minutes for some possible questions.
Yeah. Sure. So we're open for questions, Boris.
Yeah, I'm here. Great. So first, thank you, guys. This was a wonderful presentation, and thank you for doing this. We do have at least 5 minutes, and we have a couple of questions that came in. Before we jump to the questions, just again a little plug, just to add, on the MICTAC website, we do have a couple of tools that I just want to remind folks that folks use a lot, and so they should continue using. One is the Matrix tool. So as Mitch and Hector was talking about, especially at the end, following up. If you don't know who to call at the managed care company, we have the Matrix tool that gives you the billing information, the contact information. So this is one way to find out. And we also have our billing tool, which actually lays out the 837I form in the paper format and gives you field by field and what each managed care company requires and does not require. So it gives you very specific detail. We worked with every managed care company in the state to put that document together, and we're every 3 months or so updating all of those documents. So with that, let me turn into the questions that we just got. And let me start with the first one. Does the EHR have its own clearing house, or is it that a third-party arrangement?
That is a third-party arrangement, but usually the vendors work with certain clearinghouses, but all organizations are free to look into their own clearinghouse.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, thank you for that. Next question, does every organization using the clearinghouse get to pay a fee, or just those making mistakes in the processing documentation?
So everyone will be charged a fee for using a clearinghouse, whether it's clean or if they're rejected.
Right, gotcha. Thank you. Next question, what about submitting the appeals, in parentheses, or other client documentation via HIPAA-compliant email and or fax?
As long as the MCO can receive it on their end, absolutely.
Yes.
But they need to verify that with the MCOs.
Yeah, not all MCOs are ready to allow that.
Gotcha, great, thank you. Next question, is there still a deadline of 2/15/17 to contract with an EHR vendor under the BHIT program?
It's a February 15th date.
I presume that this question came from a provider from New York City. If that is so, yes, it has been extended. Our colleague Elise Colgran is going to send within this week or no later than the next week a communication not only to all NYC providers but also to the vendors informing the new deadlines. Yes. Gotcha.
Okay. Next question, is there an electronic EHR method of contacting the MCOs? Calling can end up not being expeditious due to MCO contact, out sick, vacation, bogged down with too many phone calls to return and so forth. So I guess the question here is there an electronic means to talk to a managed care company?
Not that we're aware of.
I haven't heard that, but for the person who sent that question, let me put our email right here, so that please send us an email and we'll gladly contact, do the arrangement on that regard. Yeah.
Great. And I would just add that actually would also relate to the HIPAA. If you are talking about clients, you would need to make sure that if you're doing electronic, that it's HIPAA compliant and the managed care company is ready to do that. So I think anytime talking to managed care, as I think you guys stated before, would need to be very careful with HIPAA compliance. So just wanted to add that, but great. But thank you for adding the email and doing more research with that.
Contact that's the technical team.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. I guess there was a follow-up question on the February 15th. Is there a new deadline?
Yes, the deadline has already been defined. For milestone 1.
3/31/2017.
Could you please, David, repeat louder a little bit, please?
The extension for milestone 1 is March 31st, 2017.
And milestone 2?
Milestone 2 is October 31st, 2017. And milestone 3 is January 31st, 2018.
So March 31st, October 31st, and March 2018, correct? Good. That's for New York City, though.
Yes, New York City.
Only. I mean, the rest of the state has a different set of deadlines.
Right. Great. Thank you. So we'll take one more. We're actually at time here, and then we'll share, of course, the rest of the questions with you guys at BHIT. And what we couldn't get today, we'll see if there's a way we can get back to folks. But this last question is, can you recoup funds for services rendered before Medicaid was reinstated?
Could you repeat the question, please? Yeah?
I think the individual wants to know is, can you get paid for services before, you know, if somebody loses their Medicaid and then they get reinstated, can you get paid for the services before they get reinstated? I would assume the answer is no, but any thoughts on that? I mean, because at that point.
The answer is no, with a possible exception. If they got reinstated, they may be able to get reinstated retroactive to termination.
Correct.
Yeah. But they would have to get the retro reactivation.
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Great. All right. Well, with that, I think we're 1 minute over, and I want to say thank you for folks for joining again, and for the BHIT team for presenting on this important topic, and we'll look forward for future events and so forth. So thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.